So maybe as a quick sense check, who's heard of pineapple before tonight? Sure, okay, so just under half of the room. So social media marketing doesn't work. So I'm joined here on the stage by Yashoda. She's an actuary by trade, and she's our chief marketing officer, which seems like a juxtaposition. I always tell her that she doesn't actually know what she's doing.
Okay, so before we started, Marnus did warn Fred that we tend to finish each other's sentences, and I usually finish with something that he had no intention of concluding with. But, I mean, to the point, a lot of people do ask the question, how does an actuary end up in marketing? And that was really one of the things that I wanted to address in, this kind of discussion today. So I've got 14 years of corporate experience. So why does an actuary with 14 years of corporate experience leave that kind of stability to join a startup? And the answer really does kind of brew to all the things Noah has already spoken about, is that, when you study to be an actuary, you go through Mordor of maths and statistics, and you basically have to fundamentally figure out how to build these models that do a lot of predictive analytics for you. And then, in comes Facebook analytics, Google analytics, all the things, I shouldn't say Google, I'm so sorry. All the things that almost automate information that makes sort of reaching your customer in a tactical, strategic way really possible and tangible. And I think a lot of corporates, the older traditional insurers have a long way to go in terms of being able to access that in a way that's viable. So for me, joining Pineapple was a way to leverage the skills that I've been trained and taught to understand in terms of data analytics, but also to make a difference. And now I'm going to let Marnus, kind of explain the Pineapple story and how this brand has done as well as it has. I take no credit for any of that. I only joined a month ago. But it is an absolutely amazing story.
Cool. So maybe just to give a background on the problem that we're trying to address in insurance. So the best way to describe what's wrong with insurance is with a game theory experiment. So who here knows what game theory is? So in this experiment, what they do is they take 10 participants and they tell each of them you can put 10 Rand into a pot. And the administrator will double whatever's in this pot and distribute it evenly back to everyone. So it sounds like a good deal. So the first round, everyone puts their 10 Rand in, totals to 100 Rand, doubles to 200 Rand, everyone gets 20 Rand back. And this goes on for a few rounds until someone figures out that they can actually game the system. So what they do is they don't put any money into the system, only 90 Rand in the pot doubles to 180, everyone gets 18 Rand back. Everyone makes an 8 Rand profit, so it's still a good system for everyone, but the guy who cheated makes 18 Rand. And now everyone's in this prisoner's dilemma where they know someone's cheating, but they don't know who, and there's nothing they can do about it. So gradually the system collapses because everyone's best outcome is to also cheat the system. So the system always collapses when they run this experiment, and that's where we see insurance at the moment as being at, where there's a conflict of interest between the insurance company and the insured. Where for denying claims, their profit margin goes up, and you don't get to see how your premium actually is used. So we set out to solve this entire conundrum in insurance by creating what is Pineapple. So I'm not going to go into the details too much, but it's a completely decentralized system of insurance that allows you to insure anything in the snap of a picture. So it uses AI to detect what's in that picture, and then you can insure it from there. So I'm not going to go too much into selling Pineapple. I just wanted to sell it a little bit at the start. So maybe let's start off by who wants to venture a guess what percentage of your premium goes towards paying legitimate claims in the current insurance industry? Let's 5%. Okay. Okay, that's very good because your perceptions of insurance are obviously very bad. So it's around 38% of premium goes towards paying legitimate insurance claims. Now, who wants to guess what sort of marketing spend you need to establish a brand? I'm not going to name any names, but like one of the big insurance brands in insurance, what sort of a budget do you need to establish a brand like that?
Agency people, any volunteers to...
No, total spend.
Okay.
Okay, 20. So the number ranges between 500 million to R1 billion, depending on who you ask.
And I can verify this is part of the finishing the sentences bit. So I spent a very long proportion of my careers in, traditional insurers. And I think the sort of natural progression from being an actuary and a data scientist to actually getting more involved in marketing just happened because, nobody really understood what is the attribution of the spend. Where are you coming from? What channel? Have you seen something on TV, but have you also been on your phone while you've seen the thing on TV? Have you responded to a billboard? So it's all really, quite fuzzy. Whereas if digital is your primary channel, you can always have a call to action that you can calculate and actually quantify. So the numbers Marnus have just said are not unrealistic at all. Some of the brands, I'm also not going to mention them, they do legitimately spend $500 million to R1 billion a year on ad spend. And the sort of analytics around how is that spent, where is it optimized, is completely vague. Whereas if you do use digital channels, you can say, well, we have a single view of customer that shows us exactly how you've come into the app and all the behaviors that you sort of have displayed prior to doing that. So I think having a digital strategy just completely drives down your expense margin as your growth increases. And like I said before, like back in the day when like maths and stats was a thing without all the digital platforms, it was really difficult to build the propensity models to accurately be able to attribute. I finished the sentence.
So maybe just to touch on that. So that sounds very scary. If you want to build a brand, 500 million to R1 billion to build a brand. So we set off on this journey with just over 5 million rand. So everyone in the industry said, we're crazy, it's never going to work. But something very fundamentally has changed in the way we reach the customer. So about 10, 15 years ago, there was a monopoly that was held by the press, the television agencies in getting to that customer. So no one who didn't have a big marketing spend could reach the customer. But as we know with social and mobile now, it's very easy for anyone to access that customer with a limited budget. So we've grown to just over 10,000 customers in about 6 months using only...
Who did that? Thank you.
Using only online tools. So I thought I'd share a bit of the tools that we've used or a bit of the strategies we use to get there with everyone. So my background is in accounting and law, so it's not a marketing background at all. But there's a few key things we used on social that you can't really use on other forms of advertising. And the first one is social proof. So if you look at how people buy, let's say you take it back 600 years. Everyone, if I wanted to buy eggs, I'd go and ask my neighbor, who's got the best eggs? And he would say, John's got the best eggs. So then I went and bought eggs from John. And then along came the television, and then everyone bought by looking what's being thrown at them. They just trusted those brands. But now there's a revolution that's going back to community buying. So when we started this journey, we asked questions to about 300 people, and we asked them, what would make you trust a new brand more? And there were numerous things. It was press articles, registered FSP, backed by a global insurance business. But the one that stood out the most was positive peer reviews. And that's the one thing you can't achieve on a television ad or radio ad. So if you've got an ad running on Facebook, for example, that's got 100 likes and let's say like 300 of those little love things, I don't know what you call it. What do you call them? Hearts, 300 hearts. That immediately signals...
Not marketing background.
Yeah, so that immediately signals to everyone that this is a trustworthy brand, because if you look at, to our advantage, a lot of insurance companies have a lot of angry customers that they've built up over the years. So when they come onto socials, you see like 300 of those angry faces. So we immediately stand out just based on that social proof. Another thing that we did quite a lot is amplification. So if someone writes a positive press article on us, throw it on socials, boost it, because immediately it's not us saying it anymore, it's someone else saying it. So that's a lot more trustworthy because we're not the ones telling our brand story, someone else is telling it. And the last thing that's a big advantage of social is the fact that you can experiment very easily. So traditionally with TV, you had to generate this ad, you get all the consultants in, they make this perfect ad of what they think people would want, and then you run it for 3 months, you don't really get feedback, and then you accept it because you've already paid the marketing agency. But our strategy is generally, if we want to run a campaign, generate probably like 80 to 100 different pieces of content that says exactly the same thing. So using icons, using pictures, using like lifestyle images, you do 100 of it, and then you put it all on online marketing, and then after a few days, you see which one gets the best traction. You only run that one. So you don't need to spend all this money to get to something that you think is going to work, and then try that, and if it doesn't work, it's a failure. So you can almost, we call it like spray and pray. You just spray and pray, and then the things that stick, you keep on doing that.
Okay, just to finish your sentence. So who here knows about TV rate cards, AV Prime, Shoulder, the things you don't actually understand what you're buying for? Okay, so I mean, that whole experience, having sort of gone through it, the attribution and the actual call to actions are completely diluted. Whereas with digital marketing, like Marnus says, if you do a test and learn to different audiences at exactly the same time, you can measure the effectiveness of each of those changes. Whereas it is a bit of spray and pray, because you kind of hope that having prime time in a generation's slot is going to get you the most eyes. But what does that translate to in terms of actual conversions? So with financial services, I think it is quite difficult, because what the product is quite complex. But being able to actually educate customers also through digital also plays a huge role, because we've seen that our target market is first-time insurance buyers, where if they've seen something flighted on TV, there's still questions that are not being answered in that commercial specifically. Where if you do bring them in through digital channels and you've got the capability to actually speak to them, you can address a lot of those, sort of complex insurance jargon. And I think that's really been one of the sort of draw cards for me to actually, leave the whole corporate environment and join a startup, because that is the future. Data is everything. I mean, there's been so many quotes about what is big data, data is the new oil and all of that, but it really is. If you do fundamentally understand your customer, you can really sell them absolutely anything.
Yeah, maybe before we go into questions, I'd just like to invite everyone to quickly take out their phones.
Not marketing.
So if you go onto your local app store, Play Store, iStore, just search for Pineapple Insurance. You can get instant insurance on your phone, your watch, your glasses, your laptop, anything.
It really is that easy.
Cool. Thanks a lot for your time.